in the lecture room,
Yeah.
how are we mitigating that problem and making people realize that actually having a degree can benefit your business?
There's a miss between what I think is amazing and what the need is. If a student came and said, hey, listen, I've identified these particular issues, or I've identified these kinds of problems, and I think this idea could solve that, then you've got my attention. An entrepreneurial mindset is not something that you can learn from a textbook. It's not something that is taught. You need to move from trying to keep selling your intellect to other key skills that the job market is starting to look for.
Innovation, exam papers.
Yeah.
How are we giving the students the opportunity to think outside the box while sticking to the curriculum?
The first is, I think that's what most students are exposed to, which is...
Hello, hi. Welcome to Enact With Us, a talk show solely based on students in business. Today, we have a special guest from the academia world known as Dr. Lerato Mdaka. Doc, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. I didn't expect that I'd be sharing a bit about myself. But
Please do.
Well, what brings me here, I suppose, is because I am the faculty advisor at Enactus.
Okay.
My role there, especially in the society, basically is to guide the entrepreneurs through their entrepreneurial journey.
Right.
And also hold the executive accountable.
Okay.
Apart from that, yes, I am a senior lecturer in the Faculty of Economics and Management Sciences.
Okay.
And the core of what I do is entrepreneurship, education, and innovation.
So are we talking to the right person here?
Perhaps. Well, it depends on what we're going to talk about, I suppose.
Okay, we're talking about students having businesses
Yeah.
while they're studying
Yeah.
entrepreneurship.
Sure, then it's definitely, let's dive in.
Here's a question, Doc.
Yeah.
A student walks into you in the classroom and says, Doc, I have a great idea. What is going through your mind when they say that?
It's not a great idea.
It's not a great idea?
Like the first thing that goes through my mind is it's probably not a great idea.
Wow.
And the reason that's usually the first thing that goes through my mind is because a lot of the times entrepreneurs have this idea, oh, I've got this brilliant aha moment, it's an excellent idea. But most of the time, they're not considering whether that idea solves a particular problem or a particular need. And most of the time, there's a miss between what I think is amazing and what the need is. Remember, the core of being in an entrepreneurial space is that you can serve a market, you can serve a type of people.
Right.
And quite often, you get so married to this idea, and the idea is often, most times with the students I've seen, a bit irrelevant. So you don't want to spend too much time in love with this idea. Hey, I want to start a company where the lipstick beeps when it's running out, but no one actually would want to buy that. If a student came and said, hey, listen, I've identified these particular issues, or I've identified these kinds of problems, and I think this idea could solve that, then you've got my attention because then you've got a market.
Okay.
And so the idea is that don't keep an ideas book, keep a problems book. You know, how many issues, how many problems can you keep identifying?
Right.
Because if you marry the problem, the ideas would then fit. You can have however many ideas.
Okay.
And because there's a core issue, there's going to be a market for that towards the end.
A core issue.
So yeah. So don't marry the idea. And so when you say it's great, I already know, mommy, get out of there. Let's rethink.
From scratch.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So that's usually the first thing. And then I hear them out, of course, and find out, oh, actually, it isn't a good idea.
Doc, you're talking about issues, you're talking about problems. Currently, we are faced with socio-economic issues. Could you please elaborate and explain that to the students out there?
Yeah.
Then maybe that will guide them to the idea then?
Socio-economic issues. So what do you want me to explain?
What is it? What are they based on? And how could you start a business based on socio-economic issues?
Yeah, so I think you're right. Like students hear the term socio-economic issues, and already they're thinking, what in the world does that even mean, or what does that? What is that? And so if I think if I try to break it down, I mean, we're talking about social, we're talking about people, we're talking about the community. And if we're talking about socio-economic, we're talking about the ability to make a living, the ability to generate some kind of income or the livelihood of a society. So if we had to break it down to its most basic definition in my head, socio-economic is literally the ability of a people, a community, a family to earn a living. That is socio-economic. And so when we talk about issues in socio-economics, we're talking about the inability to do so.
Okay.
Yeah. So some of those issues, there's so many that relate to socio-economic issues, whether it's lack of access, whether it's financial exclusion, whether it's gender inequality. I mean, there's so many aspects within our communities, within people. There's so much injustice, or what's the word? I think that's the word. In those spaces, both in socio and economic. So, yeah.
What's happening now leads me to the next question, because I'm here and I'm learning already.
Yeah.
Because I would assume, for the vast majority of people, that the relationship between education and business, we believe it may have been broken down or something like that.
Okay.
Because people tend to think that they need to drop out to pursue their business.
Oh, okay,
so as a lecturer in the lecture room, how are we mitigating that problem and making people realize that actually having a degree can benefit your business?
Okay, so I think first we need to understand the context or understand the core issue.
Okay.
I think there's a misunderstanding of entrepreneurship education or the education of business.
Okay.
So I think we need to look at it in 3 elements, if I can call it that.
You may.
The first is, I think that's what most students are exposed to, which is education about entrepreneurship, right? And that's at the surface level, learning that this is what this is and this is what is possible. So education about entrepreneurship doesn't transform and doesn't lead to what you're talking about, the need to actually start the business.
Okay.
And then you get what we call education for entrepreneurship, which I think is somewhat getting there. And so you're in the classroom, you're teaching them, maybe trying to transfer some kind of skill, so that one day, based on what they're learning, they would be able to start some kind of business.
Okay.
But the core of what we need to get to is education through entrepreneurship.
Education through.
Yeah.
Wow.
So moving from about to for and rather focusing on educating through entrepreneurship. And this is more transformational.
Okay.
And so we're saying whatever you're learning in your classroom, whatever you're learning within your context, we're applying it in a real world.
Wow.
If that makes sense.
It does make sense.
Within the classroom, starting a business, establishing a team, creating those prototypes, starting to commercialize whatever the product or the prototype is, and whatever you're learning, applying that to your business while you're in the classroom or while you're in varsity.
Okay.
And so I think a lot of students maybe aren't exposed to education through entrepreneurship. They're more exposed to education about entrepreneurship or for entrepreneurship.
Right.
And I think maybe there's room to create, maybe in our university context, a type of compulsory entrepreneurship program where what you're learning in the classroom you can apply in the business that you're establishing as a first year from the beginning. I think maybe that would bring in that education through entrepreneurship.
So we're talking practicals, like how the pharmacy students go there in the lab doing their practicals. Are we talking about, okay, now a first-year student has to have a portfolio of evidence compiled by the end of the year?
Start your enterprise, yes.
By starting enterprise.
Start your enterprise, start your business, create your products, start getting clients, and whatever you're learning in the classroom, you start to apply within that very business that you're running.
Wow.
So that by the time you get to your 3rd year or you graduate, you've run a business for at least 3 years with various support from various faculties.
That is
Yeah,
wow.
I mean, you know the statistics in the country. I mean, a business doesn't exist past 3 years. Well, they say there's a high failure rate in that businesses don't make it past year 3.
Okay.
I think about 70% of them don't make it past year 3, and about 90% of that remaining 30 don't make it past year 5.
Sure.
Yeah, so if you're starting in varsity in your first year and those first 3 years are surrounded by an environment of support, whether it's through tech transfer, whether it's through faculties, whether it's through whatever, then already we're starting to resolve that socio-economic issue.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, that's what I don't know. That's what I'm thinking.
No, you're on the right path. You're on the right path because academia still has to maintain the integrity of the degree, the curriculum.
Yeah.
So hear me out, dog.
Yeah.
Innovation.
Hear me out. I know when you say hear me out, you're about to say something I need to be careful about. Yeah.
It is, because here's the question.
Yeah.
Innovation, exam papers.
Yeah.
How are we giving the students the opportunity to think outside the box while sticking to the curriculum and matching the standards of an exam paper?
I think, okay, wait. So rephrase your questions that I can answer it a little better.
Okay, so entrepreneurship is based on innovation.
Yeah.
Thinking outside the box, being creative and everything like that, right? An exam paper, there's a certain criteria that you have to meet, certain type of questions, and there's a memo. With entrepreneurship, there's no memo. You have to see your way through it. Yeah. So an exam paper, that's the way to measure where you are in terms of your intellect based on the work you've been receiving in class. Mm-hmm. So my question is, as the academia world, how are we, expanding the minds of entrepreneurs and making sure that we are still breeding entrepreneurs? However, we still need to maintain the exam papers in the classrooms.
Okay, so you're speaking about building an entrepreneurial mindset, an entrepreneurial mind, but at the same time getting your degree.
Yes.
So how do we find that balance?
How do you find the balance?
Or why is there...
no, there's no why. It's just how do you find the balance? Yes.
I think first of all, an entrepreneurial mindset is not something that you can learn from a textbook. It's not something that is taught.
Okay.
And why I say that is because the characteristics of an entrepreneurial mindset relate to things like the ability to deal with uncertainty, the ability to showcase resilience, flexibility, and being highly adaptable. And so for you to exercise those characteristics, the ability to take calculated risks, for you to be able to develop those skills, you need to be put in situations that require you to be resilient. You can't answer a question about resilience in a paper. Do you understand what I mean?
I understand.
So when a person, so to me, an individual with an entrepreneurial mindset can easily pass a paper and get a straight A, because the characteristic of an entrepreneurial mindset requires things like perseverance, discipline, resilience, and all of those things. It's trying to get the individual who doesn't have the entrepreneurial mindset into that mindset. And that, I think, yes, you can't test that through papers, but I think it requires getting the student getting their hands dirty, if I can say that. Yeah. So moving from more traditional to a lot more practical. Yeah.
All right. That sounds interesting.
Yeah, and it's tough because yes, you get different kinds of universities, and in the context that we're in, we are classified as a traditional university. So that means we have to meet certain criteria, and that research is a focus, and so we have to find that balance.
You have to find that balance. Yeah. So, Doc, can you say being a faculty advisor for Enactus is a way of you implementing the practical side of what you teach in class? Is that your way of trying to implement the strategy you would like for the world to take?
Yeah, I would say that. I mean, like, Enactus as a society is highly practical. I mean, it's about starting that enterprise, getting your hands dirty. And the core of it really is related to how are you starting a business that specifically contributes towards the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and that's very important.
Okay.
So yeah, I would say that being a faculty advisor allows me to mentor and guide students through that journey who are outside of my immediate environment. So what I mean by immediate environment, I give entrepreneurship, and so in that module, that's what I task students to do. They have an entire semester to start a business, to create a team, to create the product, and then to pitch it to an investor or a possible partner. So how do you expose students that are outside of that environment, that don't have the opportunity to go through an entrepreneurship module like that, opportunity to still do so? Because I don't think entrepreneurship is faculty focused. I don't think it's, it's what is it, multidisciplinary, if I can call it that. So I don't think it's just for students in economics and management sciences who are studying business management. I think it's something that should be exposed to all students. And I think that's what Enactus as a society provides for students. So regardless of whether you're in health sciences, whether you're in sports sciences, you get into the society, and the core of what you need to do there is establish a business of your interest. And so maybe if you are in sports, you're interested in starting a coaching, consulting, or a sports club, being in Enactus would help you develop something like that. If you're in health sciences, being in this kind of society allows you to do that. So to answer your question very shortly, because I think I'm answering your questions quite long, but to answer it frankly, yes, I think being a faculty advisor in Enactus allows me to be able to help students who have an interest in it, who have that entrepreneurial mindset that we were talking about.
Previously.
Guiding them through the establishment of whatever their business is, regardless of what they're studying or what their interests are. Yeah.